Good morning. Today we are working on PO26, continuing working with those percentages. This one is I can find a part, whole, or percent using an equation or proportion. Now, looking at our plan for the week. So Ellen, we're going to be done with yesterday's. You're going to have to do that later. Okay? Looking at our week, we are finishing up the unit this week. That means we are finishing up the binder this week because it's the end of try one in 2 weeks. So next week is testing week. Then we're going to be doing retakes because if we want to retake and get our grade improved, we always want to get our learning improved, but if we want it to improve our grade, it has to be done before Tuesday the 25th, that Tuesday before Thanksgiving, as the last day of the trimester, as the last day we can do retakes. So we're testing next week, and then it's doing retakes, making sure we get all caught up on those retakes. So retakes from our last test have to be done by this Friday. Okay. On Friday, we are also making our packet for video number 4. So just know that. So we're finishing up our objectives this week. We're making the video 4, the video 4 packet number 4 on Friday. And we will have just a little bit of retake time. I am after school on Thursday of this week. Not tomorrow because I have a meeting after school tomorrow. So only Thursday of this week for doing retakes. All right, so looking at PO26. In every situation involving a percentage, there will be 3 components: the part, the whole, and a percent. The part in our equation, we're going to use a P to represent it. The whole, we're going to use a W. And then the percent, we're going to use that percent sign. Okay. So in each example below, we want to identify the part, the whole, and the percent. So 72 is 90% of 80. So which of those numbers is my part? Joe? 72. Which is my whole? Finley?
80.
And which is the percent? Grace?
90.
Now, the percent is the easiest one because there's already a percent sign there, right? Part and whole. Which number is going to be bigger?
Whole.
The whole. Every single time. Part is a part of the whole. So the part is always going to be smaller. The whole is always going to be bigger. Always, always, always. So we need to remember that. Let's look at our next, well, unless our percentage is bigger than 100. If we're looking at 150% of 20, our part would be bigger, right? Because that percent is above 100%. If the percent is below 100%, the part will always be less. So we have to look at how much that percentage is. So 16% of 30 is 4.8. What is my part? Henry?
4.8.
What is my whole? Pam?
30.
And what is my percent? Ellen?
60.
Now, I'm writing this on the board. You should be writing it on your paper because we are identifying them. Last one. Ooh. 20 over 25 equals 80 over 100. Now we have to use our knowledge of what we've done in other objectives. What is my part? Elliot?
220.
One number. Oh,
80.
oh. Joe? What is my whole? Joe?
80.
No.
No.
Colton?
100.
Nope. Cam?
25.
What is my percent? Clara?
80.
Not just 80. Ellie?
800.
Yeah. Because remember, that percent can be that fraction over 100. We can convert 80 hundredths to be 80%. So that 80 over 100 is the same as 80%. So that is our percent. So when we see something like this, I always think of tests. I got 20 out of 25 correct. Okay. So my part would be the 20, that's how many I got correct, out of a possible 25. So 20 out of 25, part over the whole. Always remembering that percentages have that magic number 100. So the denominator of 100 tells me it can convert to a percent. All right, so we have two different ways. We said we were working on proportions and equations for finding a percent, finding the part, whole, or percent. So the first one is the proportion. So that would be part over the whole equals that percent over 100, right? So that last one we saw, that 80 over 100 was 80%. Now our equation, this is the one that I tend to use because it just works for my brain so much easier, especially if I'm using a calculator. Our equation is the part equals percent times the whole. So I use P equals percent W, because we know that percent right next to the W means we're multiplying. Okay, P is part, percent is the percent sign, W is the whole. So it's that equation, you need to be able to write that calculation out and then put it into your calculator. But we've talked about this before. We don't ever want to just take our numbers and put it straight into our calculator, because then when we make mistakes, we don't know where we went wrong. So a lot of times where we go wrong is people put the whole in for the part, or the part in for the whole, and that's where we mess up. So we always, always, always want to think about what that equation is, write out the calculation. What numbers are you putting into your calculator? What operation are you doing? And then put it into that calculator. So, on our homework, it does say show your work. That's writing out the calculation. What work am I going to do? So if I look at, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna erase this so I can scroll up, but you'll still be able to see. We're going to do it both ways. Use both methods above. So first, let's look at our proportions. What number is 35% of 70? How am I gonna set that up using my proportions? Elliot, we're gonna use a question mark for what it is we don't know.
So question mark equals 25%.
So let's do our proportion first. So the fraction looking one. So what is it gonna look like if I do my proportion?
Question mark over 70 equals percent of 3500.
So I need to solve for that question mark. It is a proportion. So that tells me whatever I do to the bottom, I do to my top. Do I know how to go from 70 to 100? Do I know what I'm gonna multiply by?
No.
So what do I do that's the opposite, Clara?
Reduce.
I could reduce. How would I reduce that? Say that last one again.
You vote, that was in the same,
So- Is there one number that goes into all of them? Okay, so if I divide by 5 here, I get 7 and 20. And if I divide by 5 here, I get 14. Now what? No, I've already simplified it down, so I can't be doing that 100. Any other thoughts on how we could do this? If I don't know how to go from 14 to 20 by multiplying, I can divide going backwards. I could say 20 divided by 14, 100 divided by 70. What do I get if I divide backwards? Finley? Yeah, what is it? Elliot?
1.42857142.
So say that again, 1 point,
4285.
okay, I'm gonna stop there. Because our 100th place is what we round to when we get a big decimal. So we look to the thousandths place. So we had 1.428, so that would round to 1.43. So 70 times 1.43 would be, let me see your calculator real quick. Okay. So what is 35 divided by 1.43? So if I said 20 divided by 14 is that 1.43, what's 35 or 7? Do the, yeah, 24 point what? 24.475. I have to look at rounding it. I can do 24.8. Mr. Schultz has in his answer key 24.5. Okay. Sometimes when we go, he, for whatever reason, did to the 10th place, I always do to the 100th place. Now let's do it using our equation. Part equals percent times whole. What does my equation look like? Elliot?
Question mark equals 0.2570.
So, because we know what labels to put in our equation, we know we're looking for that part. What number is that small percentage of, that smaller percent of 70? So P equals 0.35 times 70. What is P? Finley?
24.5.
We get the same answer. Which one was easier? Okay. Sometimes those proportions aren't easy to work with. That equation, a lot simpler. Let's look at our next one. 48 is what percent of 120? How do I set up my proportion? Oh, I need more people than just Elliot. How do I set up my proportion? 48 is what percent of 120? What do you think, Henry?
It would be 48 over 120 is question mark, remember? No.
Okay, So, the mathy way to solve this one, I would do 48 divided, I would multiply both sides by 100. Because this is dividing out 100. So I would multiply both sides by 100, so we're left with just our question mark. So we've got 4,800 over 120. What is 4,800 divided by 120? Go.
40.
So what percent would that be? Finley?
40%.
If it's asking for a percent, your answer must be as a percent. You can't just write 40. 40 is very different than 40%. So if it's asking for a percent, always have to convert it to that percentage. So now, if we're doing our equation, what would it look like for our equation? Henry?
It would be 48, wait,
Because remember, our equation is part equals percent times the whole. So 48 is our part.
and 48 equals, and then question mark times 100.
Remember, when we do the equation, we fill in what it is we're looking for. What is our whole?
120.
How am I going to solve for my percentage? Finley?
Divide 48 by 120.
Why?
Because
What do we call that?
it was turned to a percentage.
What do we call it? I'm not just dividing 48 by 120, I'm dividing 120 by 120. Remember that? That's that opposite operations that we did. Last unit, opposite operations, dividing out, so I'm left with just my percentage. 48 divided by 120 is what? Use your calculator. 48 divided by 120. Cam,
2.5.
48 divided by 120?
I put it in
What did you get, Grace?
0.4.
How do I convert that to a percentage? Joe?
Add 0.
So that's adding a 0. We convert our decimal to the percentage. Always, always, always making sure our final answer is a percent. 0.4 is different than 40%. Always, if we're looking for that percent, you convert it to percentage. Last one. 18 is 25% of what number? How do I set up my proportion? Elliot?
You do 18 over question mark equals 25.
Now, this one has my question mark on the bottom. I want my question mark on the top. So, I'm going to multiply both sides by my question mark. So I'm left with 18 equals 25, 100 times that question mark. To get that 25 hundredths over to this side, I flip it, so it would be 100 over 25 times 18, because you have 25 over 100 divided by 25 over 100. You flip your fraction to multiply. So 100 over 25, I can say is 4. 4 times 18 is what?
72.
So let's see how that looks using our equation. Finish.
18 equals 25% times 78.
How do I get the W by itself? Henry?
By dividing the W into 18 by the W.
I want the W over here by itself. What do I want to move over so the W is by itself?
25%.
25%. Is 25% easy to work with, or should I convert it to something?
Try to convert it to something.
What should I convert it to, Henry?
Maybe a decimal.
Decimal. So I'm going to divide by that 0.25. 25% is 0.25, right? 25% divided by 0.25 cancels out. That's 1. What is 18 divided by 0.25, Laura? So I get the same answer. Working with those proportions gets a little more complicated. We will be working on that complicated proportion stuff. But if we don't have to do it the complicated way, whew, equation is a lot easier. So remember, with that equation, sometimes we're looking for the part. All we have to do is multiply through. But if we're looking for the percent or the whole, we have to divide to the other side. So if you're looking for the part, you multiply. If you're looking for the percent or the whole, you have to divide to get that percent or whole by itself, doing that opposite operation. We talked about how that opposite operations are going to keep on popping up. Okay, this is one of those objectives that's popping up on us. Our second page, let's look at what our work is for today. Most situations for which you will use these methods are real-life situations. Answer each question below showing your work. Round decimals, now he's saying round decimals to the nearest tenth. A lot of times he says to the nearest hundredth. And even on here, he's on his answer key, he has it to the hundredth. But the directions say to the tenth, so round it to the tenth. Okay? Show your work. Are you doing proportions? Are you doing the equation? If you're doing the equation, you must write out the equation. Then put it into your calculator. You can't just go straight from there into the calculator. Okay, you have to write out what calculations you are doing. Some of these are multi-step. Your bookshelf has 150 books in it. 20% are on the top shelf, 50% are on the middle shelf, and 30% are on the bottom shelf. How many books are on each shelf? So we've got top, middle, bottom. So you're going to have to do the equations for those, right? So you could do equations, you could do proportions. I like to do the equation. So let's see what that looks like with the equation. If I have 150 books and 20% are on the top shelf, what does my equation look like? What calculation am I going to do? Finley.
P equals 20% times 150.
So that 20%, remember, is 0.2, 0.20. That's an easy one where you just have to multiply it. When we're looking for that part, we're just doing that multiplication. What is 20% times 150? We should all have our calculators out. Emily. 30. I have 30 books on my top shelf. Middle shelf. 50% are on the middle shelf. Do I have to do the big equation?
No,
Why not, Henry?
because 50% of 150 is just 50 divided by 2. Half.
We could just say, well, I know 50% means we divide by 2. Okay, you could do the equation, part equals 0.50 times 150. 0.50 is dividing that number, timesing it by 0.5 is the same as dividing by 2. You get the same number. What is half of 150? 75. Now, using our number sense, we could choose to do the equation, or what else could we do? Well,
Add the two numbers you got and then subtract it by 150.
yeah, we know there's a total of 150 books. We subtract out the 30 and the 75, what are we left with? So sometimes we have to use that equation every time, sometimes we have number sense that we can use. But we have to say how we got that 45. So I could say 150 minus 30 minus 75. Or I could say, well, part of equals 0.30 times 150. 150 times 0.3 gets me 45. You can do it either way. We're getting the same answer. Does that make sense? Show your work, so I know what method you used to get it. Your homeroom has sold 120 raffle tickets, which is 40% of your goal. How many tickets is the goal for your homeroom? What would my equation look like for this? So let's look to see. We know we have 120 raffle tickets, we have a 40%, and how many tickets is the goal? So what's my part, what's my percent, and what's my whole? That's the first question we have to ask. What's the part, what's the percent, what's the whole? So what's the part? Henry?
120.
Yeah. What's the percent? Victoria? And what's my whole? Ellen?
How many tickets is the goal?
Yeah, that goal is my whole. So how do I set out my equation? Once I figure out part, percent, and whole, how do I figure out my equation? What should it look like? Our equation is part equals percent times the whole. Victoria? What do I have to do to figure out that whole? Am I gonna multiply? Colton, why not?
Because you can divide.
I need to get that whole by itself, so I have to do that opposite operations. So I'm gonna divide by that 0.40. What is 120 divided by 0.40? Because I know 0.40 divided by 0.40 is 1. What is 120 divided by 0.40? Evelyn? Always go back and double check your work. My part was 120. It's 40% of my goal, which I'm saying is 300. Did I do my math correct? Does 120 seem like almost halfway to 300?
Yeah.
It does. Sometimes we put our calculations wrong into our calculator. So earlier Cam was like, oh, wait a minute, I put it in wrong. So if we would have done 0.4 divided by 120, what would we have gotten for an answer? Somebody put that in your calculator. 0.4 divided by 120. AJ? So if we had accidentally put in 0.4 divided by 120, we would have had 0 point decimals, right? Would that realistically, logically be my whole amount? If 120 is my part, 120 is a part of some small tiny decimal, does that logically make sense? Always ask yourself, does my answer logically make sense? If it does not, it's a good chance we put our numbers in the calculator incorrectly. So always ask yourself, does it make sense? 40% is close to 50%, which is half. So 120 is close to half of 300, half of 300 is 150. Yeah, 120 is close to 150. Logically, it makes sense. We don't ever want to rush through our math. Yep, got an answer. Okay, next one, got an answer. Next one, got an answer. Because it's super easy to make those small mistakes. To accidentally multiply instead of divide. To accidentally flip the order of our numbers, which is going to drastically change our answer. So look at it. Does that look like the part and the whole? Does that make sense? Always ask, does it logically make sense? So we have the rest of this page. And then the next page. Same thing. Okay? So our word problems take up space. So it's not like it's a ton of questions. It's just, it takes up space to do it. You might come to some problems that we're not sure how to do. Really try it, especially on the bottom of the next page. It gets more complicated. There might be more than one step that you have to do. So make sure you are answering that final question. We have lots of work time. So get to work, take your time, ask yourself, does my answer logically make sense? Using that equation. Always checking, is this the part, is this the percent, is this the whole? So you could go through, and this is what I always tell my friends, all eyes up here, pencils down. Look through and actually mark on your word problem, what's your part, what's your whole, what's your percent. So the school has sold 28,000 raffle tickets, which is 80% of the goal. How many tickets is the goal for the school? What's my part? What am I going to put the P at, Joe?
28,000.
What's my percent? Ellen?
80%.
What's my whole? Bo?
Goal.
Give yourself a quick percent, part, percent, and whole. Mark it on your word problem so you know which numbers to put, which spot in your equation. You'll know, am I multiplying or am I dividing? So mark part, percent, and whole. Then fill those into the equation and solve for the one that you don't know. Does that make sense? So when I tell us to do these things, it's not because I'm trying to give you extra work. It's because I know where kids mess up most often. Part and whole. So think it through. Part or the whole amount. Which one is which number goes where, what am I solving for, where's my question mark? Go slow and make sure you're putting things in the correct spot. If we look at our lit test, 24 out of 32 on the lit test, what's our percentage, what's our part? Clara?
24.
What's our whole? Ellen?
32.
And what's our percent? That's our question. Okay. Mark it on your word problems so you can fill in the equation. Part equals percent times the whole. Am I multiplying? Am I dividing? Any questions? So definitely using our calculators with this one, but you're showing your work. You're writing out the equation. So we know what calculations you're doing. Did you divide? Did you multiply? So don't just write the equation, write what you're doing. So if we fill this in, 28,000 equals 0.80 times our whole. I need to get my whole by itself, so I'm going to divide. So this is the work that I'm writing on my paper. Write it out so I know what you divided. Show your work. Now you use your calculator and you say, okay, 28,000 divided by 0.8 gave me this answer. Always make sure first top number is the first number in your calculator, divided by the bottom. So show me what math, don't just write the equation out and be done. Show me what you were multiplying or what you were dividing. When you are finished, remember Khan Academy is due Thursday. Packet number 4 be working on. Looking at Blackbaud to see any missing work that you have. Next week, all missing work has to be turned in. Next week. So if you have missing con, that's due this Thursday. Missing con from last week. Get your work done. Get it turned in. If you're watching at home, I hope you are well, and I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like and subscribe.